Alright. What up, peeps? I am back again. So, like I said, hold on. Raise the camera a bit. Alright. So, like I said earlier, we are reviewing, we're gonna start the Child's Play series. So, this is a franchise I got into, I would say before Halloween, but it was only this franchise. I didn't expand to other horror movies. I didn't nothing. It was just I saw the first Child's Play movie because they were playing like a marathon on. It was either Encore or it was Stars or Encore, and this was in 2004. Yeah, so I was about 9 years old. No, 8 years old, and I remember it was like over the summer, and just I watched the first Child's Play, and I just remember being scared as a kid, like looking under like my bed and shit. Like it was just it resonated, and then just more and more I started watching because that same year that was when See the Chucky came out, which that's an interesting take on the franchise. But um, I do think this film in horror history is a classic. I mean, it kicked off a whole franchise. It was directed by Tom Holland, produced by Don Mancini. I mean, this movie kicked off a whole franchise, gave us basically the doll Chucky. So, and it lives on in history. Like Chucky became like he's almost like Michael, Jason, and Freddy are like regarded as the top three, especially Michael because of the amount of movies and the fact his movies probably I think his franchise is the highest grossing. So, but Chucky is up there. I mean, when you think horror characters, Chucky's a name you think of. So I love this film. I mean, I was the little kid, when I watched it. So we kick off. The film starts off with we're seeing Charles Lee Ray being chased by Detective Mike, and Brad Dourif ends up trying to hide out in a toy store, but he ends up getting fatally wounded. But before anything happens, he transports his soul into a doll, so into a good guy doll. And then the very next morning, we're introduced to Andy and his mom. So, and the actor kid who plays Andy, um, fuck, what's his name? It'll come in my head. Um, it's Alex something. But I think Alex Vincent, yeah, I think he did a pretty good job in this movie. So we're introduced to him and his mother, and it's his birthday, and he watches an ad about the good guy doll, and pretty much he wants one, but his mom wasn't able to get one, but her friend was able to find a homeless guy who was able to basically scalp a good guy doll. So they end up buying it. I mean, that's the thing about this movie too. The story is so simple. You know, Charles Lee Ray transports his soul, and I'll explain who Charles Lee Ray is. He's a serial killer who I actually would not mind one day if they ever did like a spin-off movie where it's just him as Charles Lee Ray and it ends with him basically kind of like a prelude before the ending, before how he ends up into the doll. So he transports the soul into the doll, and then they buy the doll. It's a very simple story. So, but unfortunately, Andy's mom. So Andy gives him the gift, but his mom has to go back to work and work late night. So her friend pretty much offers to pay, to babysit. And while this happens, Chucky ends up killing her friend with a ham. He throws a hammer, and I like the little moments where you see him kind of they kind of hide what he looks like when he's moving, but you see like his little feet sometimes, and so he ends up throwing a hammer at her head. She flies out the window. So his mom comes home, and and the my officer Mike and they question and they basically Chucky leaves little hints like, but obviously, and that's the other thing about the story of Chucky that works is like the Freddy story. The level of people not gonna believe you. No one's gonna believe there's a doll going around killing people. When you tell somebody this, oh, it was Chucky's like, what do you mean? It was a doll. So, so the police leave. Andy basically ends up taking Chucky to Eddie Caputo's house. So yeah, because Chucky basically convinces Andy to skip school. Um, and I'm gonna take a quick shot here. Hold on. So yeah, they go to Eddie Caputo's house. Who Eddie Caputo was Charles Lee Ray's partner, who basically bailed on Charles. So Chucky kills him by blowing up the house because he opens the oven and basically causes Eddie to shoot it, blows up the house. So then they end up back at the police station, and I think a psychiatrist basically convinces them that Andy needs to stay the night. So, and I like this scene too because he's trying to like Chucky is playing like he's not alive, so he's making almost Andy look crazy. I like that element of this film. So later that night, his mom, well, while trying to throw the good guy doll box away, she notices. I like this little detail. Oh, the batteries aren't in. So she threatens to burn it, and then Chucky comes to life, and I love it's a very iconic scene too because it's him. He's like, "You stupid bitch!" It's a good scene. So he bites her, and then Chucky basically runs off, and then so I like now you kind of get the mom in on it. So she ends up running into Mike, who she tries to tell him about the doll. He doesn't believe her, so she runs off to the homeless guy that sells it to her, who sold the doll to her, and she wants information. And the guy kind of comes on to her. Mike comes in, knees him in the nuts, and basically forces him to tell him. So this is where he finds out. Yeah, he swiped the doll that night, the night Charles E. Ray died. So he drives her home. He basically still tries to play her off as crazy, and so he drops Andy's mom off, ends up driving back. And while this is happening, Chucky ends up visiting back. No, before that, I'm stupid. So Chucky attacks Officer Mike, causes him to crash. He shoots Chucky, and Chucky starts to notice now he can get hurt. So this is where he runs to. Trying to find me. I'm gonna find the guy's name. He meets with John Bishop, who's his voodoo instructor, and basically this is where we learn that he has to get his soul into the person he revealed himself to. So Chucky does that, and he takes one of John's voodoo dolls and breaks his leg, breaks his arm, and then stabs it. So so Mike believes Andy's mom now. So they end up going to John, and this is where he tells her before he dies about this what happens with Chucky. Now to destroy him, you got to shoot him in the heart. So Chucky ends up going back to the place where Andy's locked up at. Andy tries to get out. He ends up running into the psychiatrist. The psychiatrist, I think, tries to give him a shot. Then Chucky shows up, ends up shocking the psychiatrist to death. Pretty good death scene. The kills are not like crazy in this, To be fair, Chucky is, it's not like he's Michael Myers where he can just grab you and like stab you to a wall or something. He's a doll, so it's obviously the kills aren't gonna be as like crazy. So yeah, so he kills the psychiatrist. Andy ends up running home. Um, Officer Mike and his mom realize Andy went back to the house. You have a nice little scene of Chucky, and it was kind of a little funny moment when he gets on the elevator. This lady looks over and says, looks over, then the doll's ugly, and Chucky's like, "Fuck you." It's kind of a little funny moment there. Chucky goes into the house. Nice little scene of him like just kind of stalking around the house. Chases Andy, ends up has Andy down. You know, was about to give that chant that basically helps him transfer his soul into another body. So basically, what he did earlier, he almost is about to do it. His mom and Mike go for the save. Mike gets in attacked. He gets taken out by he doesn't die, but he gets like I think Chucky slices his ankle, so he's pretty much injured. So they end up Andy ends up locking Chucky into the fireplace, and then you have a little. This is where Andy's acting was a bit wonky. He's like, you know, we're our friends. And then when Chucky tries to like, we're our friends to the end, and then Andy's like, this is the end, friend. Very weird delivery, but whatever. So he sets him on fire. Chucky's seemingly dead, but no, he's still alive, even burned. I actually like that part of the movie. And then basically they lock themselves into the room. They seemingly take out Chucky again by blowing him up. But then um, Chucky, not Chucky, Mike Norris's partner comes in. Everything seems fine, like his head. And then Chucky tries to attack, like starts the body's like strangles him, and then basically he's finally killed when I'm trying to remember who took the shot. Oh, Mike shoots him in the heart, seemingly killing him, and that's pretty much the end of the film. This film is a fucking classic, man. And this film mentioned came out in 1988, so this was 1988 too. You got to keep in mind that was a big year for slashers. You had Halloween 4, you had Friday Part 7, Nightmare 4. I think there's a Texas Chainsaw that year. Like there was a bunch, and then Child's Play came in as a new franchise, and I think it hung. It hung with these movies that had already been like Halloween was on its fourth film, Friday the 13th was on its seventh, Nightmare was on its fourth. So, you know, and this one was just a brand new franchise, and it kicked it off perfectly. I love this film, and I remember like watching it as a kid always freaked me out. I think direction wise, this is the best, but next one, Child's Play 2, is personally that's my go to. But watching one and two back to back is great, and in my opinion, if you want watch the first Child's Play, I think Child's Play, the Chucky franchise is one of the few franchises where there's not a horrible entry. Like Seed of Chucky isn't good, but it's not like I said, Freddy's Dead or Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 or Jason Goes to Hell. Like it's like you can make fun of it, you know. It's like a Batman or Robin in a way. So but I love the Chucky franchise, and I love this film. I love the performances by everybody. Brad Dourif is awesome as Chucky. Tom Holland did a great job with this. He kicked off a franchise with this, man. You know, in the span, while keep in mind, like and I mentioned earlier, this franchise, this movie came out the same year as Halloween 4, Friday Part 7. So you already had a bunch of other franchises that were on their seventh or on their fourth film. This one is like just starting a new one, and it like did it. And yeah, it's a classic. And any horror, if you're a horror fan or you want to get into horror, I would say Child's Play is a good way to get you into. It's a normie horror, very much. So I'm gonna take my hit on that, and then tomorrow we will be ranking the Friday the 13th finally, so I can just kind of put a lid on the Friday the 13th franchise, and then next Monday and Tuesday we're gonna be reviewing both Wes Craven's New Nightmare and Freddy vs. Jason, and then we'll review Child's Play 2 next week. That's definitely happening. Child's Play 2 is great. So. All right, y'all. Talk to you guys next.